This video essay is my attempt to help you on your journey down the yellow brick road of life. And it's just not just about the journey down the yellow brick road, but learning things in the present so as to make their journey much more enjoyable for you and the rest of the world. In a sense, this is a kind of a teaching moment as I reflect back upon over 7 decades of my journey. It is the journey down the yellow brick road, the greatest teacher in life is making mistakes. But that's not the great teacher. The great teacher is when you make a mistake, to rectify it and change it and go in another direction. And another aspect of that is that you learn through your mistakes, and problems, if addressed, actually become blessings, because now you know what you didn't know before. And so there's a saying in English that everybody's heard it: no pain, no gain. Kind of a simple phrase, 4 words, but it is true. Unless there is a pain, there won't be any gain. Success is not built upon just being lucky. Success is built stumbling down the yellow brick road and realizing why you stumbled and then rectifying it. Now, it's always possible to see the pain and then BS your way around it. And we've had plenty of people from Washington down to the local area that have made mistakes and then basically BS their way around them, which doesn't hurt who they're hurting, or doesn't help who they're hurting, and it doesn't help the person that's lying, essentially. The Chinese venerate the older generation because they are wise, but wisdom is not inherent. It is not something that you're born with. It is not something that you just lucked out with. Wisdom comes from stumbling, making a mistake, and then saying, now I get it, and then changing and moving on. And as I look back on, from the time that I was in college and grad school, back when I was just leaving high school and beginning college, the major issue facing Americans was the civil rights movement. And the civil rights movement was not started by nice whites. It was started by blacks who felt hurt with segregation, discrimination, hatred, killings, lynchings. America's history with race goes back to 1619, when British brought slaves to Jamestown, Virginia. It is those that have been hurt, they are the ones that have responded to the Civil Rights Movement, or formed the Civil Rights Movement, not whites. And, white liberals joined the Civil Rights Movement years after Rosa Parks. And white liberals have finally figured out that things have to change, and they will help, and they have helped blacks in their quest for equality. And this essay is where I am, and is what I believe, and is my perception of truth. But in the 21st century, we're discussing racism. And from the time of the early 60s, when whites started becoming involved in the Civil Rights Movement, it was a time when cops were beating and killing blacks, and on occasion killing white liberals that were supporting blacks. And 60 or 70 years later, what is happening in the United States? White cops are killing black guys, and white vigilantes are killing black guys. I mean, that's reality, a horrible reality. A more horrible reality, or a problem that is deeper than even that, is that many whites don't care. So in my journey down my yellow brick road of life, it started with the Civil Rights Movement, the anti-war movement, trying to deal with sexism, and we're back to dealing with blacks equally. We have not addressed the whole issue of sexism. And it is my hope that by telling you my journey down my yellow brick road, that in some way that will facilitate your learning experience on your journey. And to be absolutely honest with you, politically, as far as social movements are concerned, I am left of center. Well, that's not actually correct. I am far, far left of center. Comma. But I know that I am wrong on all those issues. I am a white, old, left of center liberal that realizes that I don't have all the knowledge that I should have about these social movements. But when I realize where I have made my mistake, I will change, add to my learning, and continue down the yellow brick road of life by moving further to the left. We have people in the United States that consider themselves conservatives. They don't want to get out of step with the rest of the world. Conservatives as far as civil rights, conservatives within the issue of sexism, the conservatives vis-a-vis those who are gay and lesbian. Conservative means I don't like the future, even though the past is wrong. And that is the definition of a conservative. It seems to me that what Americans need to do is to address the issue of where they are. Okay. I'm asking you, I'm not telling you where you should be and what you should think. What I'm telling you is that you ought to think about what is happening and think about what is the right way of handling things. I mean, I remember back in the 60s, and you know, back 100 years before, after the Civil War and before the Civil War, police were killing usually black men, and vigilantes were killing black men, white supremacists. America was founded on a lot of very valuable tenets, beliefs, but one of those beliefs is that white males are better than white females and better than white or black females. And there is no way that we can as white people, get in the shoes of blacks. We can't imagine. We can't change our Weltanschauung, our worldview, because we can pretend in our head for a moment that we might be black. It's impossible. But we can watch television And if you don't think that some cop who has his knee on the neck of a black guy who is face down on the concrete with his hands behind him with handcuffs, that he had to control a black guy who wasn't out of control with his knee and holding his knee on for 8 minutes and 48 seconds. And the last 25% of that time, the guy was dead. If you don't see that as blatant racism and murder, if you don't see that, that is clear as and it hasn't changed. A couple months before, white vigilantes were killing a guy, or shot a guy, who was just out jogging because they didn't like his race. And it has gone on and on and on back into history. We can't get into the shoes of blacks. But supposing you were white and you were being suppressed by some other race, say blacks, how many moments of you being treated less human than everybody else that is white? How long, if the roles were reversed and blacks were in control of the United States and you were a minority, how many minutes would it take you to get mad and make a change? How long would you like to feel discriminated against? How many times would you have to be arrested? How many times would you have to be beaten? How many times would family members have to have the same kind of treatment that we're giving in the 21st century to blacks? 1 minute? 2 minutes? A day? A month? A year? Or 401 years? And yet, lots of Americans are blatant racists. But we have videos. Had it not been for the videos of George Floyd's murder, they would have said he was resisting arrest and he was going to kill somebody. They've done that, whites, we have done that for centuries. The argument now in Washington is about renaming bases or forts for the military, Fort Bragg. There are 10 or 12 bases, American military bases, named after Confederate leaders, generals, or leaders of military generals or followers of racism or slavery, starting with Robert E. Lee all the way down. And we're arguing about, imagine Germany. Imagine today if Germans decided to name military bases their military bases in Germany after Adolf Hitler, Joseph Goering, Himmler. How is that any different than what is happening in America today? We have named them after people in the South who succeeded from the Union because they wanted to keep slaves. And the issue is that the issue is, when are we going to learn? At least we now know that racism is such a systemic thing in the United States that a major overhaul of our thinking process needs to start. There are two songs. Back in the time when I was young. One was by Bob Dylan. The times they are changing. The other one is We Shall Overcome. I mean, and I heard some protesters, tens of thousands of protests every day throughout America, and I was just watching the news, and the camera swung around and happened to center on a bunch of kids, 20-year-old, anything in their 40s as a kid. Some kids singing We Shall Overcome. I sat there and it's just like, I mean, you know, those two songs I lived on in the 60s. That was 60 years ago. And both of those, We Shall Overcome and Times There Are Changing, you know, I wonder how many people back then, those people that are the blacks and the white liberals, how many people really believed that 60 years later things would be the same? I mean, I want to change things overnight. I understand that that's probably not possible. It might take a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades or 4. But the racists are teaching their children. And the only way that the blacks and liberal whites are going to change America is through protests and voting. I can vote in Crown Point without any trouble. But Crown Point is in Indiana, not in Georgia. Mississippi or South Carolina or North Carolina. It just goes through the South. It seems to me that we have a moral obligation to people who are human beings just like you and me. In fact, all of us are African. We all came out of Africa, around Kenya. And when we left Africa, some went east and some went west. We have a moral obligation to learn where we've made our mistakes and then change those mistakes so that there are other people in the future will not have to live like blacks live today. I've had 2 dances with death a dozen years ago. And I know something in my gut that you know in your head. And that is that each of our clocks are ticking. You know that you're not going to live forever. That's up here. But if you've done the dance, you know your clock is ticking. And that realization causes people to come alive because they know in their gut that they won't live forever. And I'm not going to die in my deathbed and say, oh, I should have. Oh, I wish I did more. Oh. How long we have on our yellow brick road of life is not known. And there's no way that we can grasp exactly how many years or months or whatever we have had. But our clocks are ticking. And after we're gone, when we can't change the mistakes we've made in the past, our family and friends will remember the kind of person we are. No pain, no gain. Wake up before it's too late.